Genesee County has established the Basic Needs Assistance Program to offer grant funding to nonprofit agencies providing relief for low to moderate income households impacted by COVID-19. This video will detail the reimbursement process for nonprofit agencies that have received grant funding through the Basic Needs Assistance Program in Genesee County. Once your application has been reviewed, you will be notified of the approval or denial of the application and the amount of your grant award. This amount can be up to $10,000. After you are notified of the grant award amount, you will be required to sign a one-year grant agreement between your agency and the Genesee County Metropolitan Planning Commission. Now that you have your grant award amount and your grant agreement is signed, your agency can begin purchasing and distributing necessities to eligible households. Once goods are purchased and distributed, you are ready to fill out the reimbursement request to GCMPC. It is important to remember that every household served by this grant must self-certify that they are low to moderate income by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD. This self-certification document is provided with the grant agreement, and all self-certification documentation is to be included with any reimbursement request submitted. Reimbursement requests can be for any eligible expenses that occur between December 1st, 2020 and March 31st, 2021, and must be for goods that have already been distributed to low to moderate income households. You may submit multiple reimbursements as your company accrues expenses if you do not have eligible expenses that total your grant award at this time. Eligible activities include providing basic needs to low to moderate income households in preparation for or response to COVID-19. Your agency may be a food bank, food pantry, or other nonprofit agency that aids low to moderate income residents by supplying essential household items. Some examples of items that would be considered essential household items are food and water, toiletries, dish detergent, laundry detergent, feminine hygiene products, and diapers. Please note that this list is not all-inclusive. If you are unsure if a basic need your agency has been providing or would like to provide is eligible, please do not hesitate to contact the GCMPC office. We will now review some examples of ineligible uses of funds. Funding cannot be used for assistance to a for-profit business. Personal expenses not associated with the business. For example, a personal cell phone bill or transportation costs. Fees, penalties, legal expenses, or fines. Construction or major rehabilitation of buildings. And lastly, funding cannot be given as cash to recipients being assisted. If you are unsure if something is eligible or not, please do not hesitate to contact the GCMPC office. You may be asking yourself, what exactly will GCMPC be looking for when I submit my request? The first thing that we will be looking for is that the reimbursement request is for expenses that are eligible under the grant and that those expenses occurred between December 1st, 2020 and March 31st, 2021. We will also be looking for documentation that shows purchase backup. This would include any invoices, receipts, purchase orders, or any other type of purchasing documentation showing the items that the reimbursement request is for. It is important to note that if purchases are made with a credit card, you must provide the purchase backup and the credit card statement showing the balances paid. If purchases are made with a check, please include a copy of the check or the check number from the purchase. Lastly, the request will have to include proof of distribution. This will include the self-certification documentation that is to be filled out by every household assisted with this grant funding. All of this information and documentation will be summarized on a reimbursement request form, accomplishment data sheet, and self-certification form that we will review shortly. When reviewing the request, staff will ensure that the reimbursement request and all required documentation are complete and sufficient. Additional documentation may be requested if what is provided is not believed to be adequate. Staff will also be looking to ensure there is not a duplication of benefits with the reimbursement request. Staff will be reviewing the accomplishment data, which will be information on the residents served and their demographics. It is important to include accomplishment data with every reimbursement request because this data is submitted to HUD. The following screen will go over filling out the reimbursement request form and the accomplishment data information. On this screen are the 2 pages of the reimbursement request and accomplishment report. We will walk through each section of the document. Section 1 contains project information. Section 2 is to briefly describe what accomplishments have been achieved with the funding to date. You will detail how this funding has helped with preparing for, responding to, or preventing COVID-19. Section 3 is where you will detail the requested expenses. In this section, you will detail each expense using the purchase backup documentation submitted to separate expenses. Section 4 is to ensure there is not a duplication of benefits with this funding. You will provide a description of any other sources of grant funding your business has received for COVID-19 response. If you fail to report other sources of funding that your company has received for COVID-19 response, you may have to pay back your grant allocation to GCMPC. Section 5 is for reporting the demographics of residents served by the grant funding. Please fill out this information to the best of your knowledge and ability, as this information is reported to HUD. On this screen are the 2 pages of the self-certification form that is to be filled out by every household assisted with basic needs grant funding. When submitting your reimbursement request, you will submit the purchase backup documentation and self-certification forms for every household served. This entire document will be filled out by the head of household or individual that is receiving the basic needs items. They will have to indicate whether their household income falls on the provided chart. They will then have to identify every person in their household and their race, ethnicity, if they have any disabilities, and their age. The address and annual gross income must also be provided. It is important that your agency verifies the address provided is not located in the City of Flint, City of Davison, City of Clio, Village of Otter Lake, or Village of Lennon. These cities and villages receive their own funding and are not eligible to receive aid under this grant funding. The second page is for any present adults in the household to sign and certify that all information provided is accurate. In the top right-hand corner of the document, there is a box that is for office use only and reads, Estimated amount of donations. Please have your agency use this box to indicate the estimated amount of funds that contributed to this household. Staff will use this information to verify that the amount of goods distributed matches the purchase backup documentation submitted. This does not have to be an exact number, just an estimate. For example, your agency has purchased $10,000 in basic needs supplies and is submitting a reimbursement for the full amount. With the reimbursement request, your agency has also submitted self-certification documents that give a rough estimate of only $5,000 in goods being distributed so far. The reimbursement request would only be approved for the $5,000 in goods that have been distributed, and you would have to submit another reimbursement once it has been shown that the remaining $5,000 in goods has also been distributed. As I stated before, we will not be looking for things to line up to the last dollar, but using the estimated amount of donations box gives our staff a way to verify goods have been distributed to eligible households. Now that we have covered everything, you are probably wondering when you will receive your funds. Staff will process the request within 15 business days of receiving all required documentation. Within 15 days of your submission, a paper check will be mailed or electronic deposit of funds will be complete. For those receiving paper checks, this means that your funds may arrive after 15 business days. Throughout the one-year grant agreement that you have signed with GCMPC, you will have to submit quarterly performance reports for your agency until all funds under the grant agreement are expended. GCMPC staff will notify agencies in a timely manner when QPRs are due. If you still have questions regarding the reimbursement process or any other aspect of the Basic Needs Assistance Grant, please do not hesitate to contact the Genesee County Metropolitan Planning Commission office by phone or email and ask for Damon Fortney, our lead community development planner that is managing CARES Act funding.